All righty, folks. Looks like we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining us for this workshop. This is a topic that we talk about a couple times a year, but we always get requests. We listen to our audience, and we always get requests to cover this topic. First of all, I'm Eric Oliveros. I'm with the marketing and sales team, and I'm joined with my host, my co-host, Deval Padar, who is our product manager.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
And again, we'll be talking today about best practices to keep your NAS safe from unwarranted attacks. So, of course, we all know, attacks are prevalent. Some are unfortunate. They unfortunately can happen, but there is no foolproof way of fully protecting your data other than having a 3-2-1 strategy. Again, we absolutely recommend that. We can't say that enough. Of course, it's having 3 copies of your data on two different types of media. You can do tape or external drive, and then of course having 1 copy off-site. That's always your foolproof way. Of course, not all folks follow the 3-2-1 strategy. I'm guilty of that when I first got into the whole storage thing. So of course we want to just use our stuff on the cloud or use our stuff, put all of our data on our NAS, but sometimes things happen. User error. We delete stuff. We want to, of course, we got to have extra copies of our stuff. So again, we absolutely recommend 3-2-1 strategy. But today we'll be covering a few steps that you can take to possibly detract a potential attack in case your data is breached. So today we'll have 4 parts to this series. To this workshop. First 2 will be covering best use practices to help prevent a possible attack. And part 3 and 4 will discuss how to recover your data in case there is an attack. All right, so without any further ado, part 1 we'll be talking about understand the best configuration settings needed to help boost your security on your NAS. Part 2 we'll talk about learning how to configure security apps such as Security Counselor, Malware Remover, and of course your firewall in order to help protect your data. Of course, if we can ask everybody to please mute yourselves, I could I'd really appreciate that. We'll have a quick Q&A after part 2. Then we'll get into how to recover your data in case of any attacks. We'll talk about QNAP snapshots, how they can help with disaster recovery to quickly restore your data. Then we'll be talking about how to use hybrid backup sync to complete your 3-2-1 backup strategy for ensuring your data safety. All right, so part 1, let's get into understanding the best configuration setting needed to help boost your security. So first thing that we would recommend is changing your ports. And to do that, you would go to yeah. All right. So first thing we would do is change your ports. And how to do that, you'd go to your control panel, general settings, and you would see your system port here. Your default port is always 8080. So we would recommend you can change it to whatever you would like. I'm going to change it to 8900. And you have your, that's your system port. We have your secondary port here is 443 is your default port. We change that to 444. We can just do that, and that's one thing that you can do. So changing your ports.
All right. So one thing to remember is if you already have your NAS up and running, and you have many services that are running, like especially applications, right? You have QSync application, you have some applications on your phone like QFile applications, any applications that you're already running on your computer, and then you change these ports. What will happen is that these applications might stop working for some time. So you need to edit this application, and then you need to make sure you update the port. So on all applications, you will have a section called ports. And then once you do that, you have to edit that settings and then make sure you change the port. So if you're using system port, or if you're using the regular HTTP port, which is the 8080, and you change it to 8900, just update that to 8900. And also, if you're using it for SSL, or if you're using SSL connection or secure connection, then you need to make sure you update your port. Also, another setting you need to do is, yes, force HTTP. So what will happen is that the QNAP will then, when you try to access your QNAP, it will be then forced to use SSL instead of using the regular HTTP connection. That will be a little bit encrypted connection. It will be more encrypted if you do use an SSL certification from a third-party provider by like GoDaddy or other third-party providers. We also provide our own SSL certificate services, which I'll show you down the line as well. So if you use those certificates, it will be better. It will be more secure. But even if you don't use SSL, we also recommend to use SSL. To force yourself to use SSL and make sure to use different ports other than the full ports or the default ports. So default ports are not, because everybody knows what the default ports for any of this the NAS devices. Do we have any? Okay. Thank you for muting yourself. But yeah, so if you do have any NAS that you're already using, you always want to make sure you change the port. And also, once you change the port, if you look at the address bar, so if you move the address bar on the top, it's actually the new port has now pulled up. So when you try to access your NAS, now you have to ensure that you put. So if you're using HTTP, then you have to put HTTP:// the IP address of your NAS :8900. With SSL, you have to put HTTPS: / the IP address of your NAS :444. You always have to ensure that you put the new port number, because your browser does not know that the NAS has moved or shifted. Your browser, when you use HTTP, will always go to either 80, or if you use SSL, it will always try to go to 443. But now, since you have changed the ports, QNAP will now, you need to let your browser know that, okay, I'm using a different port number, so let's update that particular port number, and the browser will be able to access your NAS. So that's one major setting that I will always recommend for all users. You don't have to use the numbers that I gave you right here. Right. You can use any other number that you can. There's a series of numbers you can go from and to. If you're trying to use a number that's not being allowed, QNAP go back to control panel, go back to general settings. Let's put like 21 there. That's the FTP port, because somebody else is already using that particular port. QNAP will not allow you to see it's changed to red. That means that port is used, or that port is not allowed, so you cannot use that particular number. But just make up your own number and then just use that number. As long as it doesn't change the port number, that will be as well. Another setting that we also recommend here is to disable HTTP encryption. So don't disable that right now, but what we recommend is, so this is for use. This also actually helps increase the protection of your NAS. But when you disable this feature, there's one drawback. It actually lowers the performance of your web browser access of your NAS. So because HTTP compression uses a lot of caching mechanism when you're accessing your NAS, especially when using a browser, not other protocols, like if you're using for Samba, AFP, iSCSI, those services are not affected. But if you're using your NAS using your browser, primarily you're using your file station, using virtualization station, this setting may impact that performance. So I would recommend to disable this and then use your NAS for the next few days. If you don't see any kind of difference, leave it disabled. If you do see some major issues with your performance, re-enable this. That should be fine as well. But that's one of the settings we do recommend to increase your performance for your, to increase the security for your NAS as well. So so these are the settings for this particular NAS. Let's do something else.
Okay. All right, so that's changing your ports. Another thing that you can do is adjust your IP protection. So from there, we'll go to, oops.
Yeah, click OK. Oh, before we start, there's a few questions about recording for this webinar or workshop. Yes, there will be a recording. We are already recording this. We'll be uploading this to our YouTube channel. Also, you will receive an email after this with a recording of this. So if you do miss anything on this particular video, there will be a recording that you can refer to back again with all the changes on all the video recordings with this. Okay, so don't worry about that.
All right. So that's another thing that we can do is change your IP protection. So again, you would go control panel, security, then you have your IP protection here. Here's the different protocols that you know if you want to access. I'm sorry, you want to access or you want to block. Here you can do so here. So we're just gonna add them all. Click apply.
And also we want to what we recommend is changing the
you can change them forever. You can put whatever time limit you want. If you want to block folks out that attempt to access, you want to do it 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever. We're just going to put forever here.
Yeah. So changing forever. What this allows you to do is that if somebody's trying to using brute force attack to access your NAS, or even accessing your NAS or trying to access or trying to guess your password, QNAP will let them try for 5 times before it'll block that IP address completely.
You can also edit your attempts too. If you want after 1 attempt or 2 attempts, you can do so here.
Exactly. So you can also increase the time interval as well. But default, these are the default settings. The major setting is make sure you change the IP block level or block length to forever. So if they keep trying your NAS after 5 attempts, they are blocked. And if they even attack us, they will also try to change the IP address. And then so once you change the IP address, even if they change the IP address, the new IP address will be blocked as well. Now, because it blocks them forever, click apply. Let's say if you were trying to, you or one of your users were trying to attempt, and they just forgot the password, because now they're blocked forever, they can't even reach the NAS's IP address page. So when you try to access your NAS with the IP address, they'll be denied access. So you have to go back to allow and deny list, and then the IP address will be listed on this particular. No, don't change anything there. Just leave it allow all. So the IP address will be listed right here at the bottom of the page. You can just delete that, define the IP address and delete the IP address, and now they will be able to access the NAS again. Just ensure that they remember their password. So yeah, that is the important setting as well.
Awesome. All right, so we discussed ports. We discussed adjusting your IP protocol. Next is hello.
We aren't seeing what you're presenting.
Really?
Yes, we are.
See here.
On my side.
Yeah, now we can see it. We did not see the. We only saw the main screen before. So what you did with the IP address and stuff like that. So we saw the first one. You said change the port. After that, we saw nothing but your main control panel.
Thank you, Bruce. Are you able to see it right now?
I am now. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much again. Yeah, again, it's best to unmute yourself in case if there's any issues, or even if you want to ask questions, we always recommend unmuting yourself, and we can always answer your questions for you. But
okay. We'll go over that again here.
Yeah.
So we got we'll go, of course, open your control panel, go to general settings, and then we'll go to security, and you'll see IP access protection. And here is you can allow or deny whatever access you want to your NAS here. So you got all your different protocols here. Here you can, what Deval was talking about earlier, is the time limit that you want to block any users who are trying to access your NAS. 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, up to forever. So forever. You can put failed attempts, how many attempts you want to, if you want it, you can do it 1 attempt or 2 attempts. You can put whatever you like here. And so your time intervals. So, all right. Okay. So we can put your how many attempts you want and time intervals here, and you just click on apply, and that's your access protection. No settings were changed, so that's
go back to allow and deny list,
and then
at the bottom, all the block IP addresses will be listed at the bottom. So if you have a user that was blocked because they attempted incorrect password, you can delete them from that list, and that will be it.
Right. So again, as Deval mentioned, if you have any users, say you yourself tried to access the NAS, or any users that you gave access to tried to access the NAS, they would pop up here. here you would be able to remove their IP address and they would be able to retain access to that. So that is IP access protection. Next, we'll talk about password policies here. So we'll go to security. So back to the security tab, we'll go to password policy. Here you can determine the strength of your password if you want to add just letters, digits, or special characters here. You can do that. You can do at least one uppercase. You can design whatever password policies you want to customize your passwords. So you always want to keep a strong password. So here is where you would be able to do that. We also have the QLog Center. So if you want to track whatever access, whatever, see what activity is going on in your NAS, you would go to General, of course, Control Panel. Then we would go to QLog Center here. And here you can see the, QLog. So here's the event log of access to your NAS. Things that you want to primarily keep your eye on is all the reds here, any errors or even warnings. Here you would be able to see what's going on by a certain date or a certain event. Here's your event log. So you can see what's going on here, and it would tell you depending on what security level or what activity is going on. You can click on it, and it'll tell you what's going on here.
Sorry to jump in again, but at least what I'm seeing in my screen coming from your computer, I'm only seeing the security and IP access protection. I'm not into your logs that you're demonstrating. So I don't know why it's not switching, but I'm just watching what's on your computer. So.
Let me try my computer. Yeah. Sorry, but let's try a different computer completely and see if that helps.
I'm not having any issues seeing any of the content. So some people might be experiencing bandwidth issues or connectivity issues.
They were having problems as well. So.
All right, let's try the computer just in case.
I am not having issues. Everything's working fine.
What was that? IP address 444.
I'm just using the browser team, so maybe that's a difference. Can't speak for everybody else, but.
Oh,
yeah, that could be it. It might be because you don't use it. You're not using the thick application.
Okay, it looks like we have some folks using the desktop app, and it's.
All right, let's see if my computer is better.
I'm using a browser app in Firefox, and it's working fine for me.
All right, looks like most folks are using the browsers.
All right, yes.
I was using the browser app in Edge, and I guess I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I was having issues. But it's changing now as you're moving. So.
All right, perfect. So I guess let's take care of. Let's continue with the workshop. So again, if you have any issues, just let us know again. Yeah, so continuing with what we had before. So we were at security. We just finished IP access protection, the password policy. The password policy again. So this will allow you to create a stronger password, especially for if you're using a NAS for multiple users. So if you have a small business or large business and you have multiple users accessing the NAS, you want to ensure that they all have a stronger password. You can also require them to change the password every few days. So again, if you're using your NAS only for your personal, you can also do this settings, but this is mainly for users who want to use this for small business or large business, and they have a lot of NAS accessing like file server, any of the servers that they're trying to use this NAS for. Then you want to make sure you want to ensure that they change their password every few days. So ensure this, and you also want to ensure that when they select a new password, it's actually very strong enough. So you can select special characters, restrictions, maximum length, minimum length. So you can change those settings and apply, and that will give them password. So right here, I'm already asked to change the password because I changed this setting. So again, this is a great way to ensure that all your users are changing their password periodically and they're not using the same password over and over again. The next is QLog Center. QU's Log Center will allow you to, so Log Center, again, QU Log Center is just the log center, the log settings we had on the old firmware. The QU Log Center is just new application that we introduced that just combines every logs into the same log. So
looks like we had a question from Mark. If you see an IP address you don't recognize on the QLog Center, is there a way to easily add it to the deny list?
Yeah, so you can just add under security and allow a deny list. If you can select the allow list only, or so in this list you will only be accessed. You will only be allowed IP address from certain connections. So only an IP address from this, or deny list as well. You can if you select this, enter all the IP addresses you want to deny, and also that will be also denied as well. So that you can control that yourself. So deny list, deny connection from the list is what you want to select if you want to deny the connection list as well. So that's another great way to enter an IP address you want to deny. So again, going back to QU Log Center. So for this workshop, because we're trying to focus more on security, the major settings you want to see is access log settings. Access log settings will allow you to see who's accessing your NAS, right? And what protocols are they using. So this way you can actually ensure that only users who are authorized to access are accessing your NAS. Now, the one settings that I would like to change here is under log setting and access log settings. Under access log settings, you can select what protocols you want the NAS to monitor. If you're using your NAS for regular HTTP, that's on by default. FTP is also on by default. Telnet, SSH is also on by default. But local access protocols are denied. So if you want to enable them as well, you can also deny, also log them, ICC services, radius services, web dev services. If you use those services, you want to also select this and apply that. So what?
Folks are having problems with the Zoom screen.
Oh, Zoom maybe. Okay. Let's see. Zoom. Oh, I'm not sure how to zoom here. All right.
I don't know if that's a little better. Some folks, it looks like they had a little problem in the screen.
All right, perfect. So hopefully this is better for you guys. Again, so this will allow you to, again, as I was mentioning before, this will allow you to select these protocols, and now the QNAP will start logging these protocols. And going back to access protocols, if you look at the warnings, these are the settings these are the failed attempts that you will see. So again, so here you can actually control or see what's going on with the NAS, who's trying to access your NAS, and then if there's any incorrect password or incorrect login, not only here, you will also see it on the notification bell icon on the top. You will be seeing a pop-up under error and warning to see if somebody was denied access. And also, if somebody was denied access, if you have IP access protection, if they're denied access forever, there'll be a log here saying that this IP address was blocked forever. So you can go back and check as well. So this is also another way to see who's trying to brute force into your NAS and ensure that you're actually looking at your logs and ensure that you have all the settings enabled to make sure that you see everything here as well. So that's one important thing under Log Center that I would recommend as well. Another thing is under networking file services, we also want to make sure that under Telnet and SSH, first enable these services, change the port. All right, so I would recommend something like anything that, again, the same feature applies. If the port is used, it will just not allow you to change it. It'll be red bar. But if the port is allowed, then you will see that it allows you to change it. Once you change the port number is, hit apply. And then now, once you hit apply, once you change the port, I will actually recommend to disable these services. Don't use SSH and Telnet only under certain scenarios. One scenario is that actually we're going to go through them as well is if you're using the NAS for snapshot replication. If you have multiple NAS and you're trying to snapshot replicate to another NAS, you actually require SSH as well. So that's one reason you can leave it enabled. But if you're not using any snapshot replication, or if your application does not require any kind of SSH access, disable these services. Ensure that you first change the port and then disable these services. Don't leave them on by default. Ensure to enable them, change the port numbers to whatever you want to, and then disable these services. Okay, so that's an important thing that you want to ensure that you remember as well. Going back to settings. So going back to settings, we want to go through Notification Center. Notification Center allows you to actually control or actually see what's going on with your NAS, right? So if you have under notification history, first you want to ensure that you have a device. So now QNAP can send you notifications on your email, SMS. If you have some SMS services like Clickatel, Nexmo, and all these services, if you have accounts with them, you can create an account and QNAP can send you messages on your phone for your notification as well. Instant messaging, we have instant messaging from Skype as well. So so now you can actually receive Skype messages if you have any notification from your NAS, and also push notifications. So if you have Q Manager on your phone, you can now receive notification on your phone as well if there is any updates on your NAS as well. So
we had a question from Thiago. Hello, how can I debug this error? An error message from the QNAP. Failed to log in your user account admin.
So I guess so under IP access protection, so there's a failed user login with user account admin, because if the admin also tries to access, so not only IP addresses, you can actually also change the under IP access protection. So let me minimize the screen. So under IP access protection, it will only block IP addresses, but you can also disable or also block accounts. All users can be blocked account. Also, all users who try to access your NAS during these protocols will be blocked, and they will be blocked forever. There's no limit on how you can block. So you can apply these settings, and they will be blocked forever. And then the only thing happens is that the QNAP users will be disabled. So if you go back to user privilege and go to users, you can just uncheck this box, and those users will be automatically be allowed to access again. So again, not only IP access protection, you can also do account access protection as well. Under security, you can also go to account access protection, and then you can also check these. So all non-admin accounts will be blocked if they access your NAS with incorrect information at a certain amount of time. Okay, so so that's maybe one of the reasons that you want to check that as well. But going back to Notification Center, so as I mentioned, QU Manager is also another application that you can actually use to get notifications from your NAS. But system notification rule. So here you want to create a new rule. Okay, you can actually create a new rule for all your services. You can also pick and choose certain services that you want, but important services that we recommend to check is updates. So you just really want to ensure that you get notification when there's an update on your NAS. So for updates, I unselected everything. First, we're going to go to App Center and App Updates. So if there is any app updates that we push, you want to ensure that you get notified. So you can immediately go to your NAS and update that application, because sometimes what happens is that not only feature requests are updated through updates, but if there's any security issues that we found on application, we proactively update that application. So this is a good way to get your information. This is a good way to get notified if there is any app update. So there's one thing that you want to ensure that you do. Another thing is firmware update. So as I mentioned before, firmware updates is also another way we actually fix security issues as well. So if there is any firmware updates or if there's any updates that we release, you want to ensure that we get notified. So you can go back to your NAS and hit update to your NAS. So your NAS is always updated, and ensure that you have the latest version or at least the security fixed version as well. So once you've done that, you want to select information warning, all these messages, and then ensure that if you want to receive an email, SMS, instant messaging, or push services, you can select those services and then hit next. And if because I selected an email address, I want to ensure that I put in the email address of where I want to receive these emails, and hit next and hit finish. So now I will receive emails for any updates that I get on my NAS. So ensure that you have the settings enabled so you get information about any updates from your NAS as well. All right, and then the last thing is users who are actually using, you just recently bought their NAS and already on firmware 5.0.0, they should have a new account, which is a non-admin account. But people who are coming from an older firmware version, they're actually still using admin accounts. So now we do not recommend using your default admin account on your NAS. What we recommend is creating a new account on your NAS that is a non-admin account, and then create and disable the built-in admin account. That actually increases the protection a lot on your NAS as well. So first of all, people who are coming from an older firmware version, click on create a user. Let's say user Eric. Just enter a password. You can enter phone number, email address if you like to, but the things that you need to remember is they need to be administrator group. So you have to ensure that they're in the administrator group. Okay, and then you have to also give them permission to access all the devices as well. So ensure they have read and write access to all the folders. So because they're admin, you want to make sure you have access to all the folders on your NAS as well. Once you have done that, hit close. By default, admin have access to all the applications as well. So once you have created, and hit create. So once you've created this new user, ensure that you log in with a new user, Eric. And once you access the new user, go back to control panel, privilege settings, and then user again. Go to the edit button under account access and disable this particular account. When disable this account, the default account will be disabled. There are two ways that this increases the protection for your NAS. The default admin account has access to full SSH control. So if somebody guesses your admin account, they have access to everything under configuration, then they can change anything they wanted to under the admin account. Because the other way it increases protection is that now, because everyone knows that the default account, QNAP's username for administrator is admin, so they only have to guess the password, right? So now, because you have a new account, which is Eric, not only they have to guess the username, they also have to guess the password. So there's two ways that QNAP will increase the password, right? So this is a great way to increase protection on your NAS to get more protection from your NAS. So again, creating a new admin account and disabling the current admin account is a great way to increase protection on your NAS. Again.
That's a question. If you want to use a NAS only on an external home network, no external access, how do I set this up? How can I get QNAP updates, including security updates?
All right, that's a great way to access. That's a great question again. So I'm gonna cover that in a few minutes. But let me finish the one last thing I wanted to go over. Another thing that that I would like to disable is if you're not running any websites from your QNAP, if you're not running any web server from your QNAP, go to application, go to web server, and then disable and uncheck this box. Again, if you're running websites on your NAS, then this will create major problems. So don't disable this if you're actually running websites or hosting websites from your NAS, right? If you're using Joomla or any other services to host websites on your NAS, ensure that you do not disable this. But if you're not running any kind of websites on your NAS or hosting any websites on your NAS, uncheck this box and apply that, and that will also help you increase security on your NAS as well. So again, ensure that you have disabled that as well. MariaDB, if you don't have any hosting services, don't install these applications, remove these applications if you find them on your NAS as well. So
really good,
these are
yeah. I mean, his English it's not bad, but I wish it was a little better. But other than that, Carla, this guy's working.
I'm sorry?
Well, I think he's talking to somebody. I think he's just not muted. So you want to see who's muted. I'll go to just mute them. All right, so that's an important feature. Now, going back to another question we had from a user, regarding accessing your NAS on your local access. So there are multiple ways to access your NAS, right? To block any additional services, so or access your NAS only on local network. First of all, I'm going to go through completely disabling any kind of remote access to your NAS, or if you want to completely disable any kind of remote access to your NAS, you will not get any firmware updates. You will not get any kind of app updates. The NAS will not be able to access the internet at all. These are for users who want to ensure that their NAS stays local only, and they don't access and they don't want any kind of remote access. You can always update your apps or firmware automatically manually, right? You can always download the firmware files or app files on our websites and also update it manually. But these are for users who want to ensure that their NAS never connects to the internet, right? There's a quick and easy way to do that, right? If you go to Control Panel, Network and Virtual Switch, look at the adapter that's connecting to the internet, and go to Configure, use static address, and just remove the default gateway. All right, once you remove the default gateway, QNAP will not be able to access your NAS remotely at all, right? The QNAP will then give you a pop-up, an error message saying that QNAP is not able to communicate to the internet, or DNS is not working. There's a box to check, do not show me this message again, and you can check that box, and then QNAP won't give you the error message again. But at that point, this will ensure that the QNAP stays local completely. The QNAP won't give you any notifications for your changes in your NAS, because it's not going to be able to send emails, or it's not going to be able to send push notifications. Nothing will connect. Nothing that requires internet will work on your NAS. But this will ensure that your NAS stays local only, right? QNAP won't be able to contact our update services to check for any updates. But this is a great way to access. This is a great way to improve your security in case if your NAS is local only. Okay. So that's one way to do it. So that's okay. So that's one way to do it. Again, there's another way that if you want to keep your NAS to be connected to the internet to get firmware updates, but you don't want to access your NAS remotely, you can go to App Center. And there's a My QNAP Cloud account. My QNAP Cloud.
Dhaval, I have one question.
Go ahead.
So I have 10 gig and 2 LAN interfaces. I can reach web interface over the 10 gig pipe, but when I try to ping the other 2 interfaces which are gig, I can ping, but I cannot open a web session using browser on the 1 gig interfaces. Is there anything which I need to bind on all the services for all the ports, LAN and gig?
There's one thing you may want to check is under network access, under service, the service binding. If you do have this box checked, network services.
Are you sharing screen?
Yes, the screen should be shared. I'll go back again. Go to Control Panel.
One second. Control Panel.
Network access, and enable service binding, and then you will have all these adapters listed under NAS web management. Ensure that the gig ports are checked. Only then you'll be able to access the gig IPs, or you can access your web services using this particular screen.
Interesting. I see all the check marks for all the 3 IP addresses, but I don't know why I cannot open through web management for the other interfaces.
At that point, I would recommend creating a support ticket, because that may be something else going on in your NAS. But make sure that the other thing is, if you do change the system port, like we did in the start of the webinar or workshop, ensure that you put in the new port number. So HTTP, the IP address of your NAS, colon the new port number, or HTTPS, colon port / the IP address of your NAS and the new port number. So maybe that's one of the reasons that may have created this particular issue as well. If that's not working, I would definitely recommend creating a support ticket, because there may be something else with that configuration.
We have another quick question. Question from Dan here. My new QNAP TBS 872XT is not updating to firmware 5.0.0. I have an older NAS TS 873 that has 5.0. What to do?
Maybe I would recommend to see what the error message would be when you update the firmware. Maybe try manually downloading the firmware and then updating it your firmware as well. So go to QNAP.com and then under support. Sorry, download under OS and firmware updates. Download the firmware for your NAS 872XT.
Hi, this is Dan. There is no error. It just updates to 4.54, and it says that there is no longer an update. But for my older QNAP, it works. It goes to 5.0. There's no error.
Maybe try downloading this particular file and updating that. See if that works for you.
I will try that. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so going back to here, going back to My QNAP Cloud, again, My QNAP Cloud allows you to access your NAS remotely using QNAP Cloud services. Some settings that you need to change here is auto router configuration. Disable that UPnP feature. Do not have this enabled at all on your NAS. This may create an issue in the future because this can be used to attack your NAS as well as your network as well. So ensure that this is disabled. Always manually open the port if you need to access your NAS over the internet. Another thing is My DDNS service. Now, if you have IP address, if you have NAS if you have a network that does have static address, you can actually use that static address and just disable DDNS service. So you won't be able to use this name.myqnapcloud.com, and you can just use the IP address. So QNAP won't be updating this DDNS service. This is also be used if you want to keep your NAS local only. Disable the DDNS service so NAS does not communicate or does not provide the IP address to our DDNS service. But if you're using this NAS, because a lot of people want this NAS or want to use their NAS remotely, and they don't have static address at their network. So this is a great service that we provide is free of cost that allows you to you can keep using the service. But if you want to keep your NAS local only, disable the service. That's another feature that you want to disable if you want to keep your NAS local only and you don't want to access your NAS remotely. Another thing you want to disable is publish services. Disable, uncheck all these services, and apply that. So the NAS won't be publishing the services over to our website. Right? So because QNAP, there are multiple ways to remotely access your NAS. Right. First is just putting your if you have opened the port on your router, you can access the NAS directly on your NAS, or you can access your NAS directly from your browser, or you can actually go to myqnapcloud.com and also access your NAS through our website. This is for users who don't have access to their own or they don't have access to the router, or they cannot open the port on your router, right? So I think that's the password. Yeah, so right here in device management, this is the 872XT that we're working on, or this is the 872X that we're working on. So you see how you can access your NAS right here. You can actually access the NAS, all the services as well, that you can access your NAS. But if you don't want to use this service, you can actually disable, first of all, uncheck all these services and then apply. So we don't want to publish anything here. I don't want to publish any services. I don't want to access the NAS on the services, then apply. So NAS won't be publishing the services to our website, and they won't be. But remember, you won't be able to access the services from here as well, completely disabling the services. Another thing is My QNAP Cloud link as well. So you can disable this, and the QNAP you won't be able to access or see your NAS on this website at all. And the only way to remotely access your NAS is through opening the port and entering either your public IP address or the DDNS name, which is at this point, my name is ddp872x.myqnapcloud.com. So that's another way to access your NAS remotely. And that's the only way to access remotely to disable all these services. So here, access control, if you do provide access to another QNAP card, you can also remove them here and apply. And then you can just leave it as private, and then only me can access your NAS and hit apply. So nobody can access your NAS remotely as well. So that's another way to keep your NAS local only. So these are the settings you want to do to keep your NAS local only. Another thing is SSL certificate. So if you do want to, as I mentioned before, QNAP now allows you to access, or we do provide our own SSL certification. So right here, if you see when I access your NAS, it says that the connection is encrypted, and whatever communication I do from this browser to my NAS is encrypted, so encrypted communication. So when I upload any files or any kind of access any of my services on my NAS, it's all encrypted services. So the way it encrypts is through an SSL certification. So you can now purchase additional SSL certificate from my QNAP Cloud under SSL certificate under myqnapcloud.com. You can purchase new additional SSL certificate. We do provide 2 months of free service if you do purchase it, and then it's myqnapcloud that the domain name that we secure, and then you just check out, and then that gives you the price. Right now it's actually $44.99 with for 3 years plus 2 extra months. So this is a great way to ensure that when you access, if you do want to access your NAS remotely and you do use your browser a lot, then you want to ensure that you do encrypt this service, use SSL to remotely access your NAS. So again, these are the important settings that you want to do. Another thing is under App Center. Another thing is that under App Center, you want to do is under the settings bar, uncheck this box. This only allows you to install applications that have valid signatures. So only valid signature applications will be installed, and no other applications will be installed. And if there is any application that does not have valid signature, it will have a orange checkbox next to the application, or orange exclamation bar next to the application that will tell you that that application does not have valid signature. So if you do not use this application, delete that application from NAS. Going back here under update, you can also check when the updates are so whenever there's an update available, you can either ask the NAS to send you a notification. You can actually install all the updates automatically. If you do not test the application and you just want to update the application, the QNAP will almost automatically update the application. But by default, install required application automatically is checked. So these applications that are important application will be automatically installed. Or if you just want to get notified for that application, just hit notification, create a notification rule. Or also what we did here, this will also actually the same exact rule that we created before will create that notification for you. So whenever there's an application update, the QNAP will push an email to you, or whatever service you select, you will get notified there's an application update available. We highly recommend to go back immediately on your NAS and update that application. Okay, so those are the settings we recommend doing here. So you want to talk about the firmware update. So before we move on, the last thing I want to go through is the firmware update. So we did introduce a new update called auto update feature, right? Yeah, right here.
Okay. So yes, we do have a new feature, as Deval mentioned, that is for firmware updates that'll give you a recommended version versus the latest version. The latest version is, of course, the newest firmware update, but the recommended version is always the safest version to have, as it usually has patches or bug fixes for if any vulnerabilities are occurring. So if opting for an auto update, we absolutely recommend clicking on recommended version. So you'll notice on the auto, the 2 different versions, we absolutely recommend the recommended version.
So by default, recommended version will be checked. So recommended version again has major security fixes and all these all the features that all the security features that we found and then fixed will be under recommended version. And the latest version, again, just whenever we push the latest version, QNAP will automatically update that. Now, recently we did have a firmware update that we released that had the recommended version. So people who had their firmware updated automatically is because the default was checked to recommended version. And that is the reason the QNAP will fix. So if you do not want this, so now we actually, so before we move on to what I recommend is, now we are trying to improve the way this actually works. This is a new feature for us. So right now, if there's anything we push to recommended channel, QNAP will immediately update, or will update during the date and time you select, and then we'll update the NAS and we'll reboot the NAS after it updates. So it gives you a minute of time to stop the reboot, but actually reboot the NAS. We're actually trying to improve that to have better control over the reboot times. But currently, there's no other way. It's just the QNAP will update it and will then reboot your NAS. So that's how it is right now. If you don't want this feature completely disabled, if you don't want the QNAP to update NAS automatically, just uncheck this recommended box and then apply, and the QNAP will not update the firmware automatically. But again, as I mentioned before, when you go to the notification center, you will always, if you have this notification rule called updates, QNAP will send you updates for any, will send you a notification for. So if you do want to get notified for any firmware updates, and you don't have recommended check, ensure that this is enabled, and so this will allow you to receive an update when the QNAP does have a firmware update available, and so you can go back at your time and update, and you can stop all the services that are running on your NAS, update the NAS, and then restart the services. So another way to update the NAS as well. So ensure that you have that's the recommended version. So actually, that concludes the first section of our NAS. So what's the settings that we recommend using on your NAS to help you increase the protection for your NAS as well? So the next part is applications, right? So there are certain applications that we have released to allow you to better protect your NAS as well. So first of all, the easiest one is the malware remover. Malware remover used to be an application that you have to install, but on the new firmware, it's automatically installed on your NAS as soon as you create a volume. You do require a volume for this to work. So once you create a volume, QNAP will install malware remover. If you don't have this application, ensure that you install this application. Go to App Center, install this application. Once you open the application, there's nothing. It's all automatic. It's all automated process, right? Everything runs on a scheduled basis. You don't have to change anything inside the settings. But just to give you an overview, you can start a scan if you want to scan. It does a daily scan at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can change that as well. You want to also ensure that automatically updates this version to the latest version. You always want to make sure malware remover is always on the latest version, because that's the first way. That's the first thing we update if there's anything that we detect could be a malware as well. So if we did detect anything on our labs that could be a malware that could be potentially be used to hack your NAS, we update the malware remover first, and then we push that update immediately. So we want to ensure that is updated all the time, and so you're always on the latest version. So we also you also want to scan your NAS after the new update is finished. And also this is optional. If you want to send us a scan results of your NAS, you can also send us. If you don't want to send us scan results, uncheck this box. The malware remover won't send us any information on your NAS, and apply. A scan result just receives information from your NAS, what kind of if there is any files that we detect was incorrect, so we can use that information to update or research on what could be the next hack or anything like that. So that's malware remover for you. Very simple application. There's nothing much for that. But another important application that we do recommend installing on your NAS is Security Counselor. Security Counselor is a proactive application that checks your NAS for any kind of improper settings, and then will give you a report of that particular information, and you can use that report to change all the settings required to protect your NAS. Right.
Cool thing about it too, it gives you suggested changes that you should make to your settings. The security checkup, it'll tell you what it recommends, what the app recommends for you to change to keep your NAS secure.
Exactly. So Security Counselor, first of all, there's the application itself, the Security Counselor right here. It also does check other applications like antivirus, malware remover, QU firewall, to ensure that those applications are installed and running on your NAS as well. So again, Security Counselor is just an all-in-one application, gives you overview of everything that's going on related to security, right? So here First of all, I want to go through, before we go through this first report, I want to go through security checkup. Here you have 3 options to change. Under security policies, there's advanced security policies, there's basic security policies. By default, Security Council will select basic Security Council, intermediate, and then advanced. Under basic security policy, the QNAP will look at certain important, very important features on your NAS and ensure that those are correctly set up, right? Most important features. Intermediate, the Security Council will look at more settings on your NAS that is not deemed as important, but can also be used to as an attack point, right? So Security Council may look into more risky applications on your NAS that and will give you information about that. Advanced Security Council will look at almost everything on your NAS to see everything is set up correctly. It will also look at the smallest setting on your NAS to ensure that that is set up correctly as well. So right now I have advanced security policy set up on my NAS. Again, by default, basic security policy is what most of your users are currently using. You can also do custom security policy as well. You can ask the QNAP to check what you want the QNAP to check, right? The default password. So because Security Council will keep bugging you about any incorrect settings, right? But if you're using that application and you do want that setting to be enabled, like for example, SSH is enabled, right? But the QNAP will keep asking you for enabling that, disabling that service. So you can disable that here. So right here, Telnet is enabled, right? So if you're using Telnet, you can actually uncheck this box. The QNAP will stop annoying you about that, saying that Telnet is enabled, So you can select under custom security policy. You can select what you want QNAP to check and what you want QNAP to notify you about, right? So that's one thing you need to that you can change. You can select whichever you can look at the list and select what best suits you. Also, last thing I want to go through is security advisory. Security advisory, you can subscribe to our security advisory. We do release security advisory. If there's any major issues that we found on your NAS, we would send you an email notification about that security advisory. And you can also report vulnerabilities for your security advisor yourself. You can actually send us our information about if you found something that that you think that may be a problem with our NAS. So you can report that, or you can report your own vulnerabilities as well. You can also receive notification from this particular screen. Going back to overview, on the Security Council, the major thing you want to check is the reports is sent you, right? So when you click on view reports, these are the settings that QNAP finds that are important or that are not correctly set up, right? The first thing is, again, as I mentioned, SSH is enabled, so you want to disable that. FTP is enabled, you're going to disable that as well. Now, if you do use these services, you can, as I mentioned, you can go back to custom security policy and uncheck FTP. So right here, you have FTP disabled. You can uncheck this. QNAP won't notify you about that at all, right? So FTP will be ignored. But go back to overview. You can click on view reports. Now, the great thing about that is that, let's say if you find something that you want to disable, right? Let's say if you want to disable SSH. Now, instead of finding where the SSH settings is, you can just click on this button right here. QNAP will actually go directly to that, and it will actually find, it will actually see that. So actually, it's disabled right here. I think I haven't done a scan right here. If I do a new scan, QNAP will scan it, and then I see it's that SSH disabled is already checked. So I did change that settings, it just didn't check it. So so QNAP will not bug me about that because I did change that settings. But then if I want to do another change, I can just click on, let's say if you want to FTP server, disable that as well. I can also, if you want to force a password check, you can also check that box and then actually required to check that password. So then it will do that as well. So everything that you do here, QNAP will then you just click that box and QNAP will take you to that settings and will start using that setting itself. For FTP, the reason that we have this error message because the FTP is now moved to a new application. So if you're not aware about this, FTP is no longer under control panel. FTP is now a new application called QUFTP. and you can install this application if you want FTP services on your NAS. So you can install this application and disable FTP server completely as well using this application. So that's the error message that you saw right here. So again, so that's another great way to control your NAS on your QNAP itself by using Security Console. I highly recommend this application to understand. And this scan happens every single day. So if there is any settings that are changed, QNAP will actually immediately notify you, or actually the next day will notify you about this change that you have done. So you can go back and rechange it, or you can ignore that change because that's a change you wanted, right? So again, a great application to have on your NAS as well. And the last thing is QU Firewall. QU Firewall, again, is a new application that we have installed, or that we actually released our application. You can click on OK, and then we'll install this application.
All right. So that concludes.
No, we still have the application to be running. Mm-hmm.
Right. We'll just go through.
All right, I'm gonna stop screen sharing for 1 second. I'll go back. All right, you should be seeing the screen again. All right, so QU Firewall is installed. This application, again, is a new application. We do give you a run through of what's going on with your what application is about, but you can go through next. This is important. You have to ensure that you select the right region, whatever region you're in. You have to ensure that you select the right region. Selecting the wrong region may cause issues accessing a NAS remotely. So ensure that you select the right region. So if you're United States, ensure you select United States. If you're in any other region, ensure that you select that region, because if you do enable this feature, what will happen is that anything outside of your region will be disabled or will not be able to access your NAS. So ensure this is checked. And once you have done that, enable firewall if you want to have firewall enabled, and hit finish. This will start enabling your firewall features. Again, there are multiple ways to access or to enter or to use QU Firewall. There's basic protection. Again, will allow certain applications to be run, and then you have adapters that all the adapters will be allowed, and then also all the regions from the United States will be allowed as well. Include subnet only, so only local subnets will be allowed. Again, this is another way to access your NAS, keep your NAS only remote, local only. So this on anything from outside will be disabled completely. Only subnet only will be allowed as well. And it's restricted access as well. Only restricted users, only certain adapters, certain port numbers are allowed to access your NAS. Everything else is denied. So those are the settings that we recommend. So for users who want to have remote access, basic protection is recommended. And then that's your firewall settings. Right now, we just installed this application, so there's no event accounts. So if there's anything that's going on with your NAS, QNAP will be then you will see that on event counts. Anything that's QNAP, the firewall has blocked, QNAP will now be logged inside this particular screen. Capture events. If you want to capture your events, you can do manual capture, or you can do a packet capture. If you want to do packet capture as well, you can also do that here. Automatic capture is enabled here as well. And then notification center. Again, QNAP will send you notifications of anything going on with your QU firewall. If there's anything going on with the QU firewall, QNAP you can then receive notification about that QU firewall itself, and then what email address you want to notify as well. So so very basic application on the QU firewall. You can actually edit certain applications. You can actually add your own rule. If you want to deny certain, if you want to allow certain applications or interfaces, you can deny them as well. You can allow or deny certain IP addresses completely, or certain subnet mask completely as well. You can also do that here as well. You can also deny certain domains. You can also deny certain regions completely. So this is a great way if you want to deny certain regions on your NAS, and then QNAP, any users from that region will be blocked automatically using QU firewall. So again, so if you want, because there was a lot of feature requests for region blocking. So this is the great way. So under basic protection, edit that, and then create a new group and hit that select region, and then select the region that you want to block. And QNAP will block that region completely from accessing your NAS, or even able to get to your NAS, right? So you won't be able to see that NAS on that region, and they won't be able to get access to it. They won't be able to see a login screen. They won't be able to see anything on that if they try to access if they do get access to your IP address. So a great way to access or a great way to block complete regions from your NAS and only leave it certain IP address. And you can also do certain protocols as well. If you want all the protocols to be blocked, you can select any, and that will block all the protocols from your NAS as well. So that's QU Firewall, very simple application that we have. We have a lot of feature requests for this applications. We understand. We're actually working on an update that will actually give you more features that will be that have a lot of users as requested. Again, this is a new application, so a lot of features are missing, but we are actually improving this application. You will see more updates coming for this application very soon as well. So that concludes our first section. We want to open the floor to a Q&A.
All right, folks. Thank you. We're running a little behind schedule, so we'll keep the Q&A as smooth as possible. Looks like we had a couple quick questions. So it looks like I think you covered that. Can you add 2, 3 regions? Q firewall creates entry like this. For the reasons this multi-case IP is used. Okay, there's a couple questions here.
Yeah, you can actually add multiple regions. You can add all regions as well. You can actually do that here, and then just leave it at your region itself. Restricted access also does that as well. Only allows your region to be accessed as well. So that's another way to do it as well.
Okay, here's another question. Q firewall creates an entry like this.
It's going to the wrong screen.
Oops. That's tough to read. Q firewall creates an entry like this, virtual switch. For what reasons this multicast IP is used? Even more, there was no notification about such unallowed.
Sure?
Oh. That one right there.
I would actually create a support ticket for this, and then I would actually need more information to provide more information. I'm not really sure what's going on with this IP address.
Is there an application which performs the function of bind for local DNS?
Where's that?
Right there.
Also, can you elaborate on the application or the feature that you want, Thomas? I think that's Thomas. I would need more information. What exactly is the feature you want to, or what do you want? What do you want exactly out of that feature? So I can see if we have that available.
Yeah, Thomas, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and.
Well, I was just going to type it for you guys, but yeah, I can unmute myself. Hey, basically, I've got a Mac Mini running backend DNS for my local network. I've got about 20 boxes on it, and I like looking them up by names, not by IP addresses. So the old Unix tool was called Bind for some of you gray-haired guys that I see on the video. So it's named and Bind were the two Unix processes.
Oh, I don't think we have that feature on this NAS as of yet. You can do name. You can run the command line, but then you have to enable SSH and then run that command within SSH to manually bind. Yeah.
Well, there's some configuration files and stuff that kind of go along with it. I mean, I've looked at doing it as a VM on my NAS as well, doing it that way. So there's a couple of different solutions. I was just wondering if you guys had put a native application up there. I did look through the third-party apps, and there's a couple of people who have done some stuff, but they're like 6 years old.
Would you mind to actually send a support ticket and mark it as feature request?
Okay, I will.
I can do that here. I'll wait for that. I'll do it on my end as well. I'll wait for your ticket, and then I will actually push that as well to developers.
Okay, I'll take care of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. All right, so when I click to subscribe security, it opens a Turkish website.
Yeah, I was just going to reply to that. If you go to the very top, it looks like it's recognizing a different region. If you go to the very top of the website, you just click on the location, and you can click global English, whatever region you're in. For US, you can just click on United States, Canada. But it looks like it's a different link. Personalize your content.
No, the link you pasted from his website. It could be a browser, maybe using a VPN service. That maybe because it should be when you do subscribe, it actually uses your browser's location information to find out what region you're in. So your browser may be providing incorrect location information. Why is it going to this screen? All right. Question is, I emptied my recycle bin. However, it did not create more space on my drive. What is the best method to empty the recycle bin? So when you emptied recycle, you emptied the recycle bin and it did not empty the space. So that doesn't sound right, because usually when you delete something from your NAS, it actually goes to recycle bin. Basically, you right click and empty that recycle bin. That should technically clear the space from your NAS. If it's not doing that, maybe something else is going on. Make sure you empty the recycle bin here, not on the computer, because computer, even if you delete something from your computer, it actually goes to network QNAP's recycle bin. Ensure you delete from here. That should clear the space. If it's not happening, maybe a support ticket would be better at this point, because that should not. I haven't seen that happen yet. So how do you use QNAP QSync without opening any ports via my QNAP cloud? Or we're actually working on that particular right now. So the way you can actually do is when you go to QNAP QSync, let's see, you remove your NAS. You can add your NAS via QID. You can actually add your NAS via QID, and that should be able to access or add your NAS without having to opening the ports. But when you do this, remember this, it actually uses our service to get through. So what I'm trying to say is that the performance will be slow compared to what time of day you're trying to access. If there are a lot of people accessing our service, it could drastically impact your performance. But you can still access your NAS. Just enter your QID, your My QNAP card information, and I think I can do that right here. Let's see. Yeah, and then it will select your NAS. You can select that NAS, and it will add that NAS on your QSync account without having to open any ports on your router.
Is there any way to recover files that were sent to the recycle bin and deleted from the bin?
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, not through professional recovery websites. But unfortunately, once you delete here, QNAP actually releases that. If you, by any chance, if you do have snapshots, which we're going to cover in the next section, maybe you can recover from snapshots, but if you don't have any snapshots, then unfortunately there's no way to recover that data if you delete it, if you remove that from recycle. But if you, by any chance, if you do have snapshots enabled, you can go back in time and recover data from there. But if no snapshot, unfortunately, nothing we can do. You can try some free recovery tools on a like DriveSaver. It's not free recovery, but DriveSaver is a professional recovery software company that they work with QNAP a lot. You can ask them as well. They may be able to recover your data as well.
Okay, do you have any training videos showing how to set up My QNAP Cloud? Yes, actually we do. If you go to our YouTube channel, go to QNAP College and just look up My QNAP Cloud setup. There should be a couple of videos there that'll explain it to you. looking up here. I'll send you the link. Let me look for the link really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one here, right here. QNAP, how to set up my QNAP cloud. So, hopefully just copy and paste it.
Okay.
I didn't work. You can try copy and paste.
I'll send
Oh, it did work. Oh no, unfortunately, COM applications via USB port is not available on your NAS. So if you're completely locked out of your NAS, you can create a support ticket. We do help out, but you can turn off your NAS, unplug the drives, and then reboot your NAS without any drives. You do get temporary access, but there are a lot of commands you need to run. So we don't have that posted, obviously, on our website because security concerns. But if you do contact our support services, there's a way we can give you access to your NAS. If you are using our tips today to lock and you're completely locked out of your NAS, change your IP address of your NAS. You can on the computer, maybe try a different computer. If all the computers are locked out, change the IP address of your computer to something else. Hopefully that gives you access to your NAS and can delete your IP address of your NAS. You can regain access to your NAS, but there are still ways to access your NAS if you're completely locked out again. But again, requires support services. You can contact the support, and then that will be drive savers. Drive savers.
Drive savers. All right, folks, we're gonna get the show back on the road. We're a little behind schedule. We got caught up. We got a little sidetracked with some questions, but good questions. We really appreciate the interaction. Please save any questions for our next Q&A, which we have it after we wrap up part 4. But without further ado, we'll dive into part 3, which is see how QNAP snapshots can help with disaster recovery to quickly restore your data with minimal downtime, which you had some questions about snapshots earlier.
Yeah. Well, there's one last question about QNAP. Has QNAP, John, has QNAP or QNAP Cloud account ever been hacked? So QNAP Cloud, unfortunately, has no attacks as of yet. But again, if you're using older applications, unfortunately, people have used those vulnerabilities on older applications and firmware to gain access to your NAS. So there's no way to deny that, unfortunately. So, but we do try to keep on top of security issues, and then we try to release firmware updates and app updates as soon as we detect any issues. And so most of our NAS are the new firmware is mostly very secure on your NAS. So yeah, that's it. All right, so next thing I want to cover is snapshots. So the next things I want to cover, so these 2 steps, so the last few steps I want to cover is mostly disaster recovery, right? Let's say, unfortunately, if on an unfortunate event, if your NAS was breached, or if you have a data loss, or if your data was encrypted, what actually can you do? So these the first 2 sections covered mostly how to protect your NAS from having future attacks, but the last 2 steps are mostly for recovery of your data, right? So in case how we can protect for future recovery. So first thing is snapshots, right? Snapshots allows you to control, to create, snapshots allows you to actually create snapshots of your data in different dates and times, so you can recover the data during that particular date and time. It also can be used. It's a great tool to also use for versioning as well. If you want QNAP to have versioning, you can use snapshots to have different versions of your file, and you can recover. So if you delete something, if you got NAS, if you have an encrypted file in your NAS, you can. And if you have snapshots, I have a SSD volume that right here that has snapshots enabled. So I can just click on that snapshot button right here. I can go back in time, and I can recover certain snapshots. So right here, I didn't have anything in that particular folder, but then I added some data in this folder. So I can now go to SSD drive. I can actually right click and restore the file. restore file completely, so it will go back to that. It will replace the original file and will go and replace that particular file on that particular folder with this version of that particular data. You can also restore file to a different folder. So you want to keep the original document, but you're going to have another document of the older version. You can actually create two separate documents. You can select which folder you want that document to be on. So you can actually have the original version, the current version that you have already, and the new version as well with the QNAP snapshot. You can also download this to your local computer, so it won't restore that file on your QNAP, but you can download it on your computer that you logged in on, and that's where you can log in. You can download that whole file. Now let's say the whole volume got encrypted and all your data has an encrypted file format. You want to restore your document, or you want to restore the whole volume. You can go back in time, you select that volume, and then click on Revert Volume Snapshot, and the whole volume will be reverted to that date and time. So you can now have access to your data itself. So that's great. So this is a great tool to help you, keep a copy of your data itself. And so this will restore your data itself. So that's snapshot. So to do a snapshot, you have to select the volume that you want and click on Snapshot Manager. Once you select Snapshot Manager, right now I don't have any snapshot for this particular volume, but you can start a scheduled snapshot. So scheduled snapshot is you want to take a scheduled snapshot. So you can either take one-time snapshot, you can take a snapshot, but this will only take one snapshot of that date and time. And that's it. So, but scheduled snapshot allows you to keep taking more snapshots on a repeat purpose, on a repeat schedule. So you can set up a snapshot hourly, repeat after every 1 hour, actually you can actually go down. I think 5 minutes is lowest. So you can take a snapshot every 5 minutes. You can take a snapshot every 55 minutes. You can actually take a snapshot hourly as well. You can actually take a snapshot daily, and you can actually take monthly and weekly. Again, so multiple options that you have to do snapshot. You have smart versioning, and you have a regular snapshot, right? You can ask the snapshot. You can actually do retention policy. How long you want to keep the snapshot for? If you don't want very old data, you can actually say keep the snapshots for only 1 month. It will delete anything older than 1 month. Or you can actually ask the QNAP to keep a last few snapshots. So I don't want anything more than 10 snapshots. So you will get, because remember, when you take snapshots, actually uses space on your NAS, right? So you want to because if you're running out of space because you have a lot of snapshots, then you won't be able to take new snapshots. QNAP will delete old snapshots, but this is a great way to control the usage of your space as well. And smart versioning, you can actually ask the QNAP to keep certain versions of the snapshot hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. So you can ask snapshot to keep 2 hourly snapshots. You can actually ask QNAP to take 8 daily snapshots, 4 weekly snapshots, and 12 monthly snapshots. So you can actually have multiple restore points to go back to when you want to restore something. So, and going back to schedule snapshot, you can actually enable smart snapshot. So it will only take a snapshot if something has been written, read, or deleted, right? So, or modified. Exactly. If you have if any data has been modified, only then the QNAP will take a snapshot of that volume. Otherwise, it will just ignore that snapshot, basically. So a great way to control another great way to control, because if you're not using a NAS every single day, but only at certain days, you don't want QNAP to keep taking snapshots of nothing changing, right? So you want to only take snapshots when something changes. This is a great way to do that as well. And then once you have done that, you can now start taking snapshots. And then the way, again, as I mentioned, snapshot will look like this. You can go back in time, restore certain date and time as well. You can restore the whole volume or restore certain files only on your NAS. So that's snapshot itself. So here in the snapshot, you can see what volume has my snapshots. So you can go back, and the SSD volume has my snapshots, and then we'll see all the snapshots that are taken on the SSD volume. You can also clone if you have enough space. Sorry about that. If you have enough space, you can actually clone the whole snapshot. So you can actually have one volume, you can actually have two volumes of the same snapshot. So if you have, let's say if you have, let's say you want to compare all the data from one snapshot to the other snapshot, you can actually clone it. So you will still have your original snapshot, or sorry, original volume, and you will have a copy of the same volume on the same storage pool, so you can actually see what's going on both the snapshots. So again, cloning is that cloning allows you to create a clone of that same volume. You have to ensure that with snapshots, you have to ensure that you have enough space on your storage pool. So QNAP, QNAP 6 snapshot on the storage pool, right? So you want to ensure that you reserve some space on your snapshot. To reserve space, go to Manage on your storage pool and go to Actions and configure Pool Guaranteed Snapshot. So when you enable this, QNAP will actually leave a custom amount that you want, or certain gigabytes for snapshot itself, or you can do recommended, which we recommend at least 20% of your storage pool to keep snapshot. So within the 20%, QNAP will then leave or store your snapshot data, so you can go back in time and restore that. Or you can also go back and lower that down to 15, 10, even 5%. But if you start getting any error message saying that the volume was, or the storage pool or snapshot storage pool is getting full, you want to increase this to getting more space. And again, this will give you, but again, I still recommend this trade-off to have your volume protected or your data protected in case of a drastic issue, right? So you want to ensure that you have some kind of protection on your NAS for after the fact. So that's snapshot. The other thing I want to do is snapshot replication. So snapshot replication, if you have another QNAP NAS, you can do a snapshot replication of your volume into another NAS. So I have another NAS right here that actually I've already done a snapshot replication. The way snapshot replication is is when you go to snapshot replication right here, and you can create a replication job, select the volume that you want, and then you can select the task name, or then you can want to. So okay, so going back to that previous section, as I mentioned before, you want to disable SSH, but snapshot replication actually requires you to have SSH enabled. So in this scenario, you want to ensure that on my second NAS, on my destination NAS, I do have enabled SSH, but I did change the port. You want to always make sure to never leave it on 22. Leave it something other than 22. So when you go back here, enter the IP address of the new NAS or the secondary NAS. I think it's 24. Enter the username and password for the secondary NAS. And then the new port number, and hit test. Let's see. 138. My IP address is incorrect. Once you have entered the correct IP address, the username, password, and the correct port number, and it will allow you to now do a replication job. Hit next. Select the storage pool on the second NAS. So I do have to ensure that I have a storage pool created on my second NAS. And now a rule that you need to follow here is that whatever space you I'm going to cancel this quickly for 1 second. Okay. So on the first NAS, you don't need to have. So right here I have a terabyte of. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to do a snapshot replication of this volume, right? So I don't need to have terabyte available on my storage pool. I only need to have 20% available, right? But when you do a replication job, you actually have to have one-to-one copy, right? So you need to actually ensure that you have at least terabyte available on my storage pool. So my storage pool needs to have at least 1 terabyte space available, plus a little bit more if you want to do multiple snapshots. If you want to do multiple snapshots, you want to actually have, let's say, 1.2 terabytes, 1.3 terabytes of space available on the storage pool before the destination QNAP can accept the snapshot replication job. If you do have anything less than terabyte, the destination QNAP will reject the snapshot because it doesn't have the space available. So you have to ensure that you have 100% space of the volume that you're trying to replicate to. And also plus a little bit more, I would recommend again 20% more, so you can actually have multiple versions of the snapshot on the second NAS. Okay, so once you have that rule followed, you can go back here, create replication job again for the second NAS. So my second NAS is just 90 gigabytes. It's a very small volume I created for this demo. Hit next, and then 24. Hit test. Once the test is succeeded, once the QNAP checks it has enough available, so if the capacity is 16 terabyte, more than enough space, hit next, and then out here I can select if the destination volume have multiple storage pool, you'll be allowed to select that storage pool and then leave how many copies you want to have. So I can have 30 copies of my last snapshots. I can actually have just 2 copies of whatever you want to select right here. I hit next. You can actually set up this on a scheduled basis, right? So you can, once the local QNAPs take a snapshot, the destination will have updated snapshot after the schedule runs. You can actually have weekly, monthly, and you want to expire this job, you can just hit none. If you want to just have the NAS keep taking snapshot, you can do once a day, and then the start time, right? Once you have done that, QNAP will now take a snapshot regularly. On the top, the backup plan, right? Start the replication job immediately after the local snapshot. If you want a QNAP to start the job immediately after the local QNAP, because the local QNAP also has a schedule, right? When it takes a snapshot, if you want that, QNAP will just start the replication job after the local snapshot finishes. You can do a snapshot on a scheduled basis, we just showed you right here, or take a new snapshot on a schedule. So once this job runs, the QNAP will first take a snapshot on the local QNAP, and then we'll replicate that onto the next QNAP, right? Once you have done that, once you select the correct copy or correct schedule method, hit next. And then, so again, it does affect performance of your NAS from 5 to 30% depending upon the space. But once you have done that, it will start taking snapshots of that volume, and it will start replicating that on your NAS. So once you have done that, now I do have a replication job already doing on this particular NAS. So right here, I have 11 snapshot replicated on that second QNAP. So if you go back to the second QNAP right here, and you go to snapshot vault, you will see that I have 11 snapshot that I've received on this NAS. So I can click here on this. This is the second QNAP, right? I'm not on the first QNAP. This is the second QNAP. I can still see the data that I've copied on the second QNAP, right? There's no data I have right here, but I started putting data from the snapshot. So you can now see that I have some data from this snapshot. I can go back here. I can start I can again restore this to local QNAP if I have a volume on the local QNAP, or I can download this to my local computer. Now this data is on this particular NAS, on the secondary NAS. It's not on the first NAS, it's on the secondary NAS, right? You can also do a clone. So now the QNAP will now clone the whole volume from the second QNAP into this QNAP. So you can now start accessing all your data from the second QNAP from the first QNAP onto the destination QNAP. So that's snapshot for you in a very quick workshop, but that's how snapshot will work. So again, you will see the job status right here. You can delete the snapshots if you wanted to. If you don't want to have snapshot replication, you can also delete that right here. Under storage, you will see the space available for the snapshot, how the snapshot is using, how much space is using. So that's how the snapshot is. That's how the snapshot works. So that is the third section for today's workshop. Do you have any questions?
Just John had a question. Does snapshot save all the data even if it has not changed on each snap?
So if you have smart snapshot enabled, it's only gonna back up the snapshot if something has been modified. If you don't have that box checked, it will just make a snapshot of all the data even if it's not changed.
That's it. Can you snap specific folders? Yeah, you can snap
yes,
folders or volumes, whatever you like. You can get as specific as you want.
Yes. So actually, that's a great question. Because snapshot actually does the whole volume, but you may have a lot of data within that volume that you actually do not need. You actually go back in the control panel, go to shared folders. Let's say let's say I want to have all my hyper data protector data. That's the only data I want to have snapshot for, right? You can actually do this. You can migrate this to a snapshot folder. You can click on that. It will calculate how much space it will require. But actually, basically, it creates a second volume, small volume for this particular space into the storage pool. Hit next, and it will migrate this to a snapshot folder. And only my hyper data protector now will have a snapshot data. Everything else, like all my training videos, all my QBR human information, I don't want that to be snapshot. So I don't want that to be included at all. So QNAP will just completely ignore those data and only back up my hyper data protector. Or if you haven't done this at all and you're trying to create a new folder, you can actually create a new snapshot shared folder and then say, and just name your snapshot folder. Or just name whatever you want for that folder. You can select which storage pool you want it to go to, and you can select thick and thin provisioning. And you can also allocate folder quota so it doesn't exceed that quota, and hit next, and you can assign users permission for that folder and hit next, the Samba permissions right here, and finish. And now this will create a new folder that you can now that will only be snapshotted on this particular NAS. So not all the data will be snapshot, only this particular folder will be snapshot. So again, that's a great way to control the amount of snapshot data that you're actually collecting instead of having everything randomly done. Like all your recycle bin, all the random data would not be included in this because it's only doing this one folder for snapshots. So a great way to control what you actually backing up, right? So hopefully that answered that question.
If you need to restore data after a ransomware attack, how can you determine if the snapshot has dormant ransomware?
It's unfortunate. It's a very hard way to control. What I would recommend is if you did release a malware remover update, then once you restore the snapshot, immediately run a malware remover. That should remove any dormant files available from ransomware. Or actually, you can just remove it. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. You actually run ransomware first make sure you run ransomware, then restore snapshot, and then run ransomware again. I'm sorry, run malware remover again. That should clear any files that are done that may have any infected files. Yeah. So run malware remover, restore snapshot, or run malware remover again. Hopefully that answers that question. So now the folder has been created. So right here, my snapshot folder has been created. So if I go to volume right here, my snapshot folder is right here. So I can do a snapshot replication as well. Yeah, I can do snapshot replication for that snapshot folder. I can replicate to that other NAS. So only that folder has been replicated to that NAS. So a great way to do that, a great way to control how much snapshot data you're collecting, right? So hopefully it answers that question. Do we have any other questions before we move on?
We'll have one last Q&A
Yes.
after part 4. So if you have any questions, we can answer them then. For now, let's move forward.
Perfect. All right, last thing I wanted to cover is hybrid backup sync. Hybrid backup sync allows you to control. I'm sorry. Let me open the application first. Sorry. All right, hybrid backup sync allows you to achieve. Again, it's a backup application that just, unlike Snapshot, because Snapshot again runs in the system level. Hybrid backup sync runs on top of the system, and you can do a backup or a sync job to another NAS or cloud services. So with snapshot replication, you require another QNAP NAS to replicate to another device. With backup or with hybrid backups, you can back up your data onto a cloud server, onto another NAS, onto a USB flash drive, or anything you wanted to, or a Samba server. So those are services that are supported. So non-QNAP devices can also receive any backup job from your QNAP NAS. QNAP with hybrid backups, you can run. It's a great tool to achieve your 3-2-1 backup strategy because you can run multiple backup jobs on on your NAS. So right here, I'm going to give you an example, a perfect example of my personal QNAP NAS, right? I have a lot of photos and videos I've taken for my family and myself that I've saved. I have a lot of other data as well, but my most important data I want to, because I want to ensure that I have a backup of on multiple places, is my personal photos and videos, right? So what I've done, what Hybrid Backup Sync allows me to do is, what allows me to actually create multiple backup jobs to achieve my 3-2-1 backup strategy. 3-2-1 again allows you to have 3 copies of your data, 2 different mediums, and 1 offsite, right? So my 3-2-1 backup, like 3 copies are, one is my local NAS. The second I have a backup job going to a cloud, which is Amazon Glacier, and the third is another NAS that I have that I'm backing up this to. 2 different media again is your cloud as well as another NAS, and 1 offsite, that will be the cloud. So that's again a 3 easily achievable 3-2-1 backup strategy with QNAP Hybrid Backup. And the Hybrid Backup allows you to do that, and all runs on a scheduled basis that you can actually do. And with cloud infrastructure actually getting more the cost effective right now, what I've done is that I'm using, because I don't require this videos and photos unless something drastic happens, right? My house burns down, my NAS burns down with it, or something drastic happens, right? I'm not going to be accessing this data at all. The only time is whenever there's something drastic happens. So what I've done is I've selected a backup that's going to my Amazon Glacier Deep Archive. What Amazon Glacier Deep Archive does is that it allows you to give me a very cheaper backup cost over the cloud. And it doesn't, because if you're not going to be restoring anything from this job unless something drastic happens, the cost of backing up this to a cloud is it's actually not that expensive, because it's a deep archive. It's only meant for archiving your data and only restoring it when you need it the most, right? So that's how QNAP. So that's how I've done. That's what I've done here. So I have an Amazon Glacier job, which is archiving my data into the cloud. Now that's how you can actually. So you can also do this particular setup as well. Do an archive to an Amazon Glacier if you don't plan to access that data for a longer period of time. Now, if you do access the data a lot from cloud, then you want to select something else. We do support a lot of other cloud services, like Amazon S3 for regular backup. S3 allows you to have doesn't cost you that much to download data back into your NAS. Azure Cloud, Blackbase B2, a lot of options available. Now we have a lot of huge list of cloud services that are available on your NAS that you can actually do a backup to. So let me see if I can do a. Let me show you how to do a backup job first. So before I do a backup job again, that's the strategy that I've used. I have my archive job going to Amazon Glacier, and then I have another NAS that I've done I do a backup to. So I have 2 copies of my data to two different mediums, my NAS and cloud. So and this all runs on a scheduled basis. I don't have to worry about what's backing up. It's always doing a backup job, and I receive notification if there's any issues with the backup job. But to create a backup job, just hit new backup job, and then select the NAS that you want, or select the data on your NAS that you want to back up, and then select the destination location. I think I have an Amazon Glacier. I can select that. I can select the region name. Let me see which region I have a bucket on. Yeah, I have a bucket here. You can actually do a multi-part size if you want to select multicast, or if you want to cut your data into multiple sizes. Doesn't affect any issue. Doesn't have any issues. But if you want to select a smaller size, you can do that as well. Or you can create a new bucket as well. Since you select that information, hit select. Select the folder inside the bucket. Hit OK. And you can rename your backup job, saying that backup cloud. And hit next. And then you can do a schedule. So you can run a schedule on, you can run multiple schedules. You can do one-time periodic. You can do after every few minutes, after every few hours. You can do daily jobs. You can do weekly jobs, monthly jobs. A lot of options to choose between when you do backup jobs. You can also do run after. So if you have multiple jobs and you don't want, so when you run multiple jobs, right? I have right here multiple jobs, right? And sometimes when I take a lot of new photos or videos, that particular weeks of backup might take a longer time. So with run after, what happens is that you can start the first job on a scheduled basis. Let's say my photo job runs at 9 a.m. So after that job finishes, because I don't know how long the photo job will take, what QNAP allows you to now do is that you can actually ask the QNAP to start to start the next job after the photo job finishes, right? Once the photo cloud job finishes, QNAP will now start this new backup job, and it will start backing up the data after. So it doesn't overlap, right? It doesn't overlap and doesn't overuse your networking at all. You can also start the backup. So this first step backup job, you can start a backup job as well. Or if you don't want any schedule, hit no schedule, and you will see a backup job created. You can just come here, hit start, and it will start that backup job, but no schedule. You can also have more versioning as well. So same rule that applies to snapshots. You can do retain version, how many versions you want. You can do how many days you want to retain. You can do smart versioning as well that you want on here as well. You can also do smart versioning. And the only feature that this lacks is modified information. This doesn't have modified date and time, so it doesn't look at the data, how much what's modified. So there's no smart versioning on modified information, but you can do smart versioning of how many days or how many snapshots you want particular hour, days, and month. So that's another great feature as well. Next is rules. You can do filters. You can advanced filters. You can exclude the QNAP not to back up certain file types as well. You can completely ignore that as well. You can do the data compression. You can do deduplication as well. Deduplication, again, is an application that QNAP uses that will look at your data, and if you have multiple duplicate files, QNAP will not back up those duplicated files. Will only back up the original data onto the cloud. So this will allow you to save a lot of space if you have a lot of duplicated data, right? It only allows one copy of the data to the cloud. So again, great application would be virtualization data. So virtualization has a lot of duplicated data. So QNAP will only back up the original copy of the data. So you can do that as well. You can also do policies like you can do rate limits. So this will QNAP will you can actually ask the QNAP not to use certain if you have a gig internet, or if you have a gig internet, you can ask the QNAP to only use maybe just like 10 megabytes per second and only use that much space. It won't use your complete bandwidth when you're doing a backup job. You can always do always on, or you can do it at a specified time. So you can actually ask the QNAP to run at 10 megabytes per second during Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday during my office hours, and Saturdays and Sundays and rest of the hours just use the full bandwidth. So if you have the office running a file server and QNAP is installed inside that, it only use certain bandwidth during office hours when everyone is using the NAS, and off hours it will just use everything it can. Okay, so you can also do that as well. That's the rate limits. Client-side encryption. Client-side encryption is another feature that we have. Will encrypt your data when transferring into the cloud. So when you access the cloud, you will actually, if you want to restore the job, you have to actually enter the password before you can actually restore this. Nobody else can access the data unless they have the password available. Now, one thing to note, and it's also written right here, if you lose the password, there's no way for us to decrypt that. So the data is lost permanently. There's no way to recover data in case if you lose the password. So ensure that you write down the password at multiple locations. So if you want to do that as well. So that's encrypted password. You can also, if you have QUMAN, you can also integrate that as well. You can also use TCP BPR, which is the Google's new BPR service, to give you better information. You can also do preserve ACLs. So basically, those are the default settings that we recommend on that. And then options, you can actually let you know when there's a notification. If it fails, it will send you a notification. You can also do debug. This is mostly for support. In case if there's any issues, when you contact support, they will ask you to change some settings right here. Once you've done that, hit next and then create the job, and it will now create the job and it will start backing up the job. So that's how you can do a cloud backup job. Now, if you have another NAS and you want to back up your NAS to another QNAP NAS, first on the destination NAS, you have to go to services and then go to RTRR. Okay, and RTRR, you have to enable this, enter a password for RTRR itself, or you can just ask the QNAP to use local accounts, or you can actually have now QNAP allows you to use local accounts for RTRR. Just enter the username password, and that's it. And then the port number is 8899. I still recommend to change something other than 8899. So now, and it doesn't use 8899. So I would recommend something at 8901 or something that's available, right? Again, the same method applies when we started this webinar or workshop, sorry. And then rate limits is where you can actually ask the QNAP to now use specified speeds when you're using an upload and download times. So upload, you will use maximum kilobytes per second or whatever that you want. And you can also do only certain IP address when it allows connection. So again, a lot more features, a lot more control over that now that you can actually have. So once you enable this, only then you can actually access this. Now you have to open the port if you want to do this remote backup. If it's only local, then don't have to open the port. But if it's remote, then you have to open the port. Once you have done that, go back to Hybrid Backup Sync. And then you have to create a new backup job. Select a folder, and then remote NAS will be the remote NAS, my office NAS right here. And then it will show you the folders I have, and I can go to the folder. I can select the backup right here, and then everything else remains the same. The schedule, the rules, and summary all remains the same. So all the features that we talked about still remains the same, but this is now going to another QNAP NAS rather than our cloud server. You can do a run schedule. You can do a versioning as well. You can do policies, client-side encryption, rate limits. All those still remain the same. So yeah, that is Hybrid Backup Sync for you guys. And that concludes our workshop today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. So we'll now open up for Q&A.
Questions. So one question: can you mention how to back up NAS to NAS, which is offsite? We could discuss that.
Yeah, I think we discussed that. So that's how NAS to NAS will work. So you do a backup job on using Hybrid Backup Sync, and just you have to enable the service RTRR and enable that service. Once you have enabled that, you can create a backup job or even a sync job to do a backup to another NAS.
All right, John had a couple of good questions here. Can several backup jobs of the same data to different devices be run at the same time without any file copy conflicts?
It shouldn't create any issues when you have multiple copies of that. We'll be running multiple backup jobs to multiple different destinations at the same time.
Okay, is there a way to prevent a QNAP from running out of space which affects its operation? The warning threshold is set. Can I guarantee a certain amount of space so the QNAP operation is not affected due to no free space? You can set your threshold. We recommend what, lower than 80%?
80% would.
80%. If you go to the storage pool, if you go to your storage pool management. Oh, exactly.
All right.
So we click on storage, you'll see storage pool manager. You can set your threshold.
Set threshold right here.
Right. So from there you can pick and how much percentage that you want. We usually recommend about 80%. All right, next question. And marking them all down as we go. All right. Next question: does backup job log what files are backed up?
There's a logging feature right here that you can enable, and then you can look at the debug log, but it's more detailed logs on the backup job. Let's see. I have a backup sync, and you can open up the logs and to see what's going on. So let's see right here, edit. You can also go into reports as well to find out on the details, but it doesn't show you much information. And then logs right here. But as I mentioned, yeah. So the debug log is the only way to find out what's going on with your NAS. So that is it.
John had another question. Can you run backup simulation to see what files will be backed up? Can this be done interactively?
When you create a backup job, it actually shows you not simulation, but it actually shows you how much what folders and how much data will be backed up. So that's how it will be controlled.
Okay, can hybrid backup sync be used the backup from one drive to another, but not QNAP NAS?
So backup sync allows you to do another. Well, if it's another NAS, yes, we do support rsync. So rsync is enabled. You can set up username and password, or again, you can use local NAS account, and then you can do an rsync, provided rsync is supported on the secondary NAS. So most of the QNAP, most of them support secondary rsync server. You can also do that as well, a backup job on there as well. And then just have to select rsync on rsync on the other remote NAS, and you can select rsync server, and that is it. Okay.
That's another topic.
We did have a webinar just before this, which actually posted on the QNAP Live. We actually had a whole webinar about that. But caching with SSD drives, NVMe drives, you can select that. I don't think I have an NVMe. Yeah, somehow I have an NVMe right here. I think I have an NVMe right here. Yeah. So basically, NVMe and again, NVMe drives allows it's a very high-speed drive that you can use for caching, and we do recommend using for caching as well, which again will cache the data. Will cache the data that you actually use a lot onto the NVMe drives, and then once you stop using the drive, it will then flush the data back into SSD drive. So to do SSD caching, you have to go to Control Panel, Storage, Snapshot, SSD Cache Acceleration. Oh, I do have SSD caching. So right here, you can select the two SSD drives right here. I can do the 3 types of options. We have read only, read write, and write only. So depending upon your application, you may want to select one or the other. If you're doing read only, the only difference is that when you do read only the data won't be. You can actually select RAID type as RAID 0 because there's no risk of losing data because it's only read only data. But with read and write only, you have to do some kind of redundancy, like RAID 1 for 2 drive. Right, so you have to have some kind of redundancy because when you do RAID 0 and you write something on your NAS, because it writes first into SSD drive and then it flushes into the hard drive. If you lose an SSD drive, if there's a power loss, you may end up losing that written data. So you may end up either getting a whole data corrupted because it may be a part of file that just got copied and the rest of the file did not get copied, or it may just be that particular file type that may be corrupted. So you have to ensure that you have some kind of redundancy. Once you select that, hit next, and then you can do random IO or IO. So this is for users. Random IO is for virtualization database application. If you're running database application on your NAS or virtualization like VMware, Hyper-V, or virtualization station, then all random IO is recommended. And the block size is anything lower than anything higher than 1 megabyte would be ignored because usually database applications, virtualized applications are very small block sizes, so that you want to keep it as 1 megabyte or lower than that or higher than that, depending upon your application. But if you're using your application as a regular media server or media for video editing or for media streaming or even just regular file server like backup server, or a lot of people are just accessing like it's a small business, you're just accessing like Excel files, Word files, then all IO is recommended, and hit next and then select which volume you want to cache. You don't want to cache all your volumes, like backup volumes or regular volumes. You don't want to cache. Only select volumes that you actually have important data, and then that's where you want to cache that and select, and that will create that an SSD caching for you. Hopefully that answers the question.
And it looks like we're right about our 2-hour mark, folks. Sorry, we went a little bit over. We had a couple of extra questions, but looks like we're all out of time. But you can send us questions. We're going to send you a follow-up of the recording. If you have any questions in between now, anything that pops up, you can email us at usasales@qnap.com. Any questions, just refer that you were on the workshop and you had any questions, please email us there. But we're going to wrap it up today. We really appreciate all your feedback, all your comments, all your questions. It was very interactive, very great session. Thank you, Deval, very much. And again, any questions, send us an email. We're going to be sending a follow-up with the recording of the workshop, as well as we'll put together, as someone suggested, which I think it's pretty cool, kind of a checklist of what steps to take that we covered today. We'll do, we'll create a summary checklist, and we'll include that in the workshop follow-up that we discussed today. But that'll wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us. Please keep an eye out for our next workshop. Follow our workshop calendar. I left the link in the chat, and we'll see you next time. Till then,
thank you very much.
Thank you.